So loops are how programmers rerun the same lines of code several times. Loops will always run until a condition is met. Take first-person shooter. The game will continue to run until either you've won or your health reaches zero. Once either of those conditions occur, the game ends. Please note that it's always better to have as few lines of code as possible. Now, whether you know it or not, loops are everywhere in life. Every day we wake up, go to work, and go to bed. We know it is a routine, but it's simply a loop. We repeat the same process each day until we reach the weekend. The same concept is applied to the loops in our programs. Now, for loops are primarily used to loop a set number of times. Take Every for loop begins with the keyword for. Then you define a temporary variable, sometimes known as a counter or index. Next is the in keyword, followed by the range function, or followed by many other different examples. We have a colon. Lastly, we have a colon to end the statement. And in the next line, we have the indent. All for loops will follow this exact structure of keyword, variable, keyword, function, and colon. So a for loop is used for iterating over a sequence that is either a list, a tuple, a dictionary, a set, or a string. This is less like the for keyword in other programming languages and works more like an iterator method as found in other object-oriented programming languages. With for loop, we can execute a set of statements, once for each item in a list, tuple, set, etc. So let's try these examples first. We want to print each fruit in a fruit list. So now that we've learned lists, we can definitely work with this example. So let's try it. Now we have a list called fruits. The list contains apple, banana, and cherry. For X in fruits, print X and hit run. Now it should print out apple, banana, and cherry. This is how you print out an items inside a list. Instead of just writing down print index 0, index 1, and index 2, we just use the for loop statement. And there we have it, folks. You can't even do it. Sorry, we've created the wrong name. Fruits, and then fruits, and then fruits, and then fruits. That's it, one. Apple, banana, and cherry. But instead of doing this, what we do is for X in fruits, print X. That's it. Apple, banana, and cherry. Now let's take another example. Let's say for X in banana, let's loop through a list of strings and see what happens. As you can see, it printed out B the first time, A the second time, N the second time. A the second time, N the second time, and E and A the last time. Now, if you want to look at this in Thonny, we can try this out as well. Thonny is a, a program that shows us what's happening when you code in Python. Now that opened up Thonny, let's go ahead and try it. Step banana. Now we have a string called banana. So we take that string, we start with B, and then print out B as a string. So there you have it. It's gonna do this over and over and over again until it finishes the entire string. Now let's take the next example, the break statement. So one of the most important statements we can use is the break statement. It allows us to break out of a loop at any point in time. Let's see an example. So for x in fruits, print x if x is equal to banana, then break. So what happened here, it just stopped. So let's try to see this in Thonny. Now we have a list of apple, banana, and cherry. Now we need to loop through this list. Apple. It's going to print out apple at the bottom of the screen. And then continue to go to the next. Apple is not equal to banana, so it's not going to break. Now banana is equal to banana, so it will break and stop. And when the condition is met, the loop just stops. Now let's go ahead and try the looping through a list with the break, but the print statement is at the bottom of the code block. So let's try this. Now, this time it did not print anything except for apple. So as you can see, this is what happened. Now, if you want to see this in Thonny, then let's go ahead and do it. Stop, and then paste this, and then save, and then run. Now, as you can see, we have a list. Now, we want to see, we have apple, if x, apple equal banana, then false, then print apple, then it's going to print out apple. Now we have a banana equal banana. So true, so it breaks and it completely stops. And this is why it stopped. Now here's something that I would like you to know. If you use a double loop, the break statement will only break out of the loop that statement is within, meaning it will not break out of both loops if the break statement is used within the inner loop. Now let's talk about the continue statement. Now that we've seen how a loop works, let's talk about a few important statements that we can use with loops. The second one is going to be the continue statement. Once a continue statement is hit, the current iteration stops and goes back to the top of the loop. Let's see an example. For x in fruits, if x is equal to banana, then continue and print x. So the output in this example should be apple and cherry. Let's go ahead and view this. As you can see, the output for this is apple and cherry because it said continue. Now let's try this in Thani again and see what's happening. Let's go ahead and save this, then debug, and see what's happening. So we have apple, we have banana, we have cherry, and then we have list. First we go through the apple, and then apple is not equal to banana, so it should print out apple. Now banana is equal to banana, so it's going to skip the banana and then go back to the top of the for loop. And there you have it, folks. This is how it works. And this is why it printed out apple and cherry, as you can see here. And we arrived at the end of the loop. Now the last of the three statements that we want to talk about is pass. The pass statement is simply just a placeholder so that the program doesn't break. Let's see an example. Let's try it. Having an empty for loop like this would raise an error without the pass statement. So this will not return anything, but it will also not return an error because we typed in pass. Now, if we want to, while working, if you take the pass statement out completely, the program will break because there needs to be some sort of code within the block. So we can add a comment that says to do, add some code. And there you have it, folks. Very simple pass statement used in for loops. Now, it's simply there so that we don't have to write code within the loop just yet. It's useful for framing out a program. Now, using to do is general practice for setting a reminder. Now that we talked about the three statements in for loops, let's talk about the range function. The range function allows us to count from one number to another while being able to define where to start and end and how much we increment and decrement by, meaning that we could count every other number or every fifth number if we wanted to. When used with a for loop, it gives us the ability to loop a certain number of times. In previous example, we saw that a range of 5 printed out 5 numbers. This is because range defaults to starting at 0 and increments by 1 each time. Let's see another example. Providing the start, stop, and step for the range function. For num in range 2, 10, and 2, print num will print all evens between 2 and 10. So the values will be 2, 4, 6, and 8. Now let's try the range function again. As you can see, the range function is to loop through a set of code as specified number of times we can use the range function. The range function returns a sequence of numbers starting from 0 by default and increments by 1 by default and ends at a specified number. So for x in range 6, print x. Now this should print out 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So these are 6 times. Now note that range 6 is not the values of 0 to 6, but the values 0 to 5. The range function defaults to 0 as a starting value. However, it is possible to specify starting value by adding a parameter, range 2 to 6, which will start at 2 and end at 5, but not including 6. So this should print out 2, 3, 4, 5 in a new line, obviously. Now the range function defaults to increment by the sequence by 1. However, it is possible to specify the increment value by adding a third parameter. So 230 and then increment by 3. So 2, 5, 8, 11, 14, 17, 20, 23, 26, and 29. Now let's go ahead and see what happens here. As you can see, all the numbers printed out. Now let's talk about else in for loops. The else keyword in a for loop specifies a block of code to be executed when the loop is finished. So let's try this and see what happens. We print it out from 0 to 6 and then finally finished. So you can use an else statement with for, an else statement with if too. The else block will not be executed if the loop is stopped by a break statement. So if we type in after this line break, it will not be executed. So break the loop when x is 3 and see what happens with else block. As you can see, it did not execute finally finished because it stopped when the loop hit 3. Now what about nested loops? Print each adjective for every fruit. Adjective equals red, big, and tasty. Fruits equal apple, banana, and cherry. For x in adjective, for y in fruits, print x and y. Now that's a very interesting concept. Let's try to see what happens. Now what happened here is it printed out red apple, red banana, red cherry, big apple, big banana, big cherry, tasty apple, tasty banana, tasty cherry. And this is what happens when you have a nested loop. It's usually a very large number of code or lines. There you have it, folks. This is all you need to know about for loops in Python. Now, as an exercise, I want you to write a for loop that prints out all numbers from 1 to 100 that are divisible by 3. So, you basically jump by increments by 3 or 2 or whatever. You can try and figure it out yourself. Now ask for the user. Now the next exercise is to ask for the user input and write a for loop that will output all the vowels within it. For example, E. Hello contains E and O. Now let's go ahead and do this very quickly. Let's go to replit.com/languages/python3 for loop and then create. Now for num in range 0 to 100, increment by 3, print num. Let's see what happens. As you can see, it printed out all the numbers that are divisible by 3. And 3 is divisible by 0. Now, if you want to see the rest, I can also show you this by, well, you have to trust me on this, because as you can see, all the numbers are displayed in front of me right now, but they're not displayed onto your screen because I have increased the size of my own recording screen. Now, very quickly, let's go ahead and try to create a variable called answer equal, and then input type a word, and then for x in answer, if answer is equal to is in the list. Now we want to create a new list here. We're just going to call it L, and then A, and then I, E, I, O, and U. In L, then print X. Now to make it clear, let's change X to letter and print that letter. Let's go ahead and try this. Hello. This should work. Now in order to fix this, you need to guess what I did wrong. So how would you go about solving this problem? Now pause the video and try it yourself. Now, in order to fix this, we have to choose the word letter, because if the letter meets this criteria, then it should print out the letter. So we say it's not the answer that we're trying to test against, it's the letter that we're trying to test against. So we should try putting letter instead of answer. Now let's go ahead and print this out. Say hello. As you can see, printed out hello. Now let's try with Molotovs. As you can see, it's printed out Louaa. And there you have it, folks. The complete for loops in Python series. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Goodbye.